Can it be, after all this time, a bad player's WoW vlog? Reports of my demise have been greatly exaggerated. Howdo, gang? Daniel Gagne, Rialtas Killdog, Bad Player 03 here. I know it's been a long time since I've talked to you guys. I really haven't had much to say. I haven't even been playing as much as I've played in past, and I don't know, there just hasn't been any topics, that have been hot buttons and got me really excited about talking, and so I apologize. I haven't had much content, but, well, something brought me back in the desire to speak again about World of Warcraft, and that is some new comments about maybe what we're finally going to see scaled raids and dungeons brought into World of Warcraft. And the only real barrier is what kind of rewards and such to offer to make that relevant, yet not mandatory, obviously, for people who'd rather do other stuff. Nobody should feel forced to do legacy content. It has to be fun. It has to have some kind of reward, but it can't have a reward that feels mandatory in any way, shape, or form to any more advanced players who wouldn't consider it fun to do. We never heard the end of it at that point. So, anyways, why do I want to see scaled raids so badly? As, of course, if you've seen some of my previous videos, you know that I'm very passionate about the topic. I really want to see this in World of Warcraft, and there's really two reasons why I want to see this. One is, well, they're fun. I mean, it's got a little bit of a nostalgic flavor or whatever. I mean, I got to be honest. I've soloed pretty much every instance in World of Warcraft, at some point or another. And it's kind of cool. You go through it at your own pace. You're all by yourself. No one's there to tell you what to do, when to do. You can see every boss, every nook and cranny, finish every quest, kill everything. And it's kind of fun. But it's definitely not the same experience as when you're leveling characters. I mean, I leveled 3 alts, and I'm not trying to compare. I know there's people that have leveled 5, 10, 15 alts. But I mean, I've leveled 3 alts since my main became max level. And, different time periods, too. I mean, not all at the same time by any means. And I know when I do that, I usually run every single dungeon, because that's one of my favorite ways to level, is to at least do every dungeon one after another, do all the dungeon quests and stuff. And it just isn't the same as soloing. It just feels different. It's I'm not going to say it's hard. I mean, the reality is they're not hard. I mean, anybody who's advanced at the game, and is at all successful or skilled, able to do endgame content, would say those older dungeons with all the new abilities we have and such are really easy, and they are. But it's still a kind of feeling of, experiencing it with a group of 5 people like it was meant to be, and at least approximating what the experience was like. And I think that's fun. I think that's a great part of WoW, going back and doing that every now and again. And that's why every time I level a character, I pretty much try to hit every single one of them, because I think, I don't know, that's just part of the experience of leveling a character and experiencing WoW, another time. And the other thing is, with WoW's getting old. I mean, the reality is it can't go on forever, and at some point, it's obviously not anytime soon, because we're looking at a new expansion soon and such. But at some point, it's going to be impractical to release new content in World of Warcraft. And I mean, what's going to happen? Is it going to turn into a den of just a bunch of PvP going on, or what? And I think it'd be really cool at that point, and from this point on until then, if all the old content was runnable at an approximated level to what it originally was designed for. I mean, imagine if when WoW has no new content, you can still go back and do old content and almost feel a little bit like it was, what if it felt like when you were meant to run that content. I think that'd be a great way for WoW to go out. And I think it'd be really sad if Blizzard finally decided it wasn't worth it, because that old content is there, it's real, it's part of our history in WoW, and I think it should be enjoyable, whether you want to solo it, or whether you want to go back and just feel that experience whenever you want of what it was like. And you should have to level a new character and have to keep it at a certain level to experience it. You should be able to do it whenever you want. And with today's technology, there's no reason why we shouldn't be able to do this. Pardon me. Excuse me. So anyways, rewards. How could we make something like this rewarding, yet not mandatory? Well, my first thought, of course, is, I mean, I'm not a person who enjoys Valor capping, but when I do want a Valor cap, I love having lots of ways to do it. So really, why can't Valor still be part of it, or whatever endgame currency they use for whatever to buy your gear? Why can't Valor still be part of a legacy system, as long as it was on par with running the current content? So say you run a current heroic dungeon, you get no additional, or you get the same amount of Valor as if you run a classic dungeon. So people who prefer to do that over the heroic ones, especially casuals and such, who don't even maybe really enjoy some of the experiences of some of the new harder dungeons, can do that. I mean, really, is Valor that critical, that or that precious, that you can't reward a person for doing the content that is new, or well, not new, a new feature added to the game? I mean, really, players can still choose to do the end game content all they want. They can still choose to run the final heroic dungeons and get the valor that way. But why shouldn't, if players choose to enjoy the previous content at a scaled down level, why shouldn't they be able to get an equal amount of valor? But the trick is no more than if they had run the heroic, and you do one or the other. You have to have a shared cap on that. So let's say, like it is right now, you can run one heroic dungeon a day for 90, or for 80 valor. Why shouldn't you be able to run a classic dungeon instead for 80 valor? And once you've done that, there's no way to get 80 valor. You can't do both. Otherwise, end game players who do consider capping valor important will say, well, then I have to do it because I get another 90 for doing that, or 80 for doing that. So obviously it has to be one or the other. You can't do both. And I mean, they can even go as far as having 45 for each additional. People who want to totally just run that all day long and get their cap that way, why shouldn't they be allowed to, maybe? Or maybe Blizzard wants to say, well, hey, no, once you get the reward once and that's it. You can run one a day, get a reward for it, valor-wise, and that's it. So we don't have people feeling that that's advantageous to run, that old content again and again and again if they're, say, bored of the end game. We still want them to run the end game, obviously. We still want them to enjoy the higher level dungeons and that sort of thing. So maybe they could say do it once a day. But something like that, why shouldn't there be a valor reward? I'd still like to see it. It can't be bigger than the heroic dungeons, otherwise people will feel they have to do it. It should be just a voluntary means of getting a similar kind of reward. So anyways, valor, yeah, that's a good start, but obviously valor is not going to be the be-all and end-all of running old content, because, I mean, the reality is a lot of this is going to be aimed at casuals and nostalgic players. Maybe players who don't even want to play WoW competitively anymore. Maybe they want to play WoW just to enjoy the past and to relive some of the old content. So just having valor may not be a relevant enough reward for a vast majority of the player base. So I think there should be a little more. Why not a faction? Just like they have a faction for a lot of stuff today, why not have a special faction just totally dedicated to running old content? And I got a couple ideas for what kind of faction this would be. It could be, say it's the Caverns of Time, going back into the past to experience the past to solve some kind of problem. Maybe I mean, obviously that there's a problem with that, is that you want to change the dungeons to match this. Obviously, when a lot of the Caverns of Time dungeons are showing history points where history is kind of messed up, and you see the attempts to mess up history, you can't have that. You don't want to change the original dungeons. So maybe you just go through it to collect something, or some final reward you get out of that is important to solve the time puzzle. But I mean, that's kind of iffy. I understand, because once again, problems with the timeline, the time continuum are kind of complicated to do just by experiencing the past again and again. So maybe that's not the best idea. But how about we could also have it be historical? Lore Walker Cho, for example, the Lore Walkers, is a pretty interesting idea, where you go back and you relive the past and dig up the past to answer questions and create education and teaching. Maybe Lore Walker Cho could create some kind of secret society of learning about Azeroth's history, and going back and living these dungeons helps build his knowledge base of the past in Azeroth, and so maybe he rewards you accordingly. Now, the rewards from this faction, though, obviously have to be specially picked. Once again, you wouldn't want to give high-end gear rewards as your, what you buy with this faction and the rep and that sort of thing you gain from it, because once again, then you have your end-game player saying, well, now it's mandatory, I got to have this gear. So it can't be that. The best thing I would think is for the most part to be cosmetic gear, to be a set of gear that you create, excuse me, that shows off that, hey, I've done this. I've gone through, I've relived this old content, I've built my reputation with this faction to Exalted, and now I got this cool, shiny new set of gear. And of course, for the bigger endgame players, they can use that to transmog for their high gear if they really like that set, So it gives a little extra dimension there with transmog and that sort of thing. But basically, vanity. A key part of it's going to be vanity. Maybe you can have some pets, a pet and a mount too. You can buy all vanity. There's nothing that has any real relevance. So that should be the main rewards, I think, of a faction idea like that. Um, of course, a couple of ideas too is maybe you could have I think some other ideas that are really cool with faction rewards. Obviously, you could have some just cool items, that related to that. Just novelty carnival items that do cool things in WoW. To show off and to catch people's eye. But finally, I think a really cool idea to have in a faction that would be some kind of a lottery ticket or lottery item, kind of like the what was it, an egg? I think that you would get in one of the factions back in Wrath of the Lich King. That was, I never did the faction. I read about it, was tempted to do it for a while. I just couldn't be, the basin or whatever it's called. I couldn't really bring myself to go for the dailies. I didn't find them very enjoyable. But I know you could get an egg at the end of that or something like that, and that egg would hatch into something random. And that random idea could be almost anything. I mean, one, it should definitely have a slight chance to be a really cool, amazing, powerful piece of gear. Because that gives some tiny bit of incentive for for an end game person to go, yay, I got something actually worthwhile to my end game progression from doing this, even though that the odds have to be small enough that it wouldn't be the primary means of doing or reason for doing it. And of course, if a low end player got a piece of gear like that, big deal. They're probably not going to make use of it. They're going to go, yay, do I look cool? Got this amazing piece of gear. They're going to put it on. They're going to have fun with it. Not going to affect the game all that much. So a slight chance at a really amazing, powerful piece of gear or two maybe would be worthwhile. You could have maybe some rare or older pets and mounts like Blizzard likes to do in terms of rewards like that. Something that just pops up. And I think it would be really, really cool if it was, say, a really tiny, rarest, unbelievable rare chance. Maybe something like Ashes of Alar. People go in and they put the time in to get to Exalted and to farm. Oh, and the key to the logic is it can't be something you could do every day. You can just keep buying and buying. There has to be a time frame to it. Maybe they could do it once a week. They could buy this item, or once a month. Maybe you could have something to do with the Dark Moon Fair, or even where every time you go to the Dark Moon Fair, you can do that once. You can buy this item. So something that's once in a blue moon, you can buy this ticket. Otherwise, you just keep buying it again and again and again until you win. It shouldn't be like the fortune cards where you can buy them by the 10,000s and hope you win the reward or whatever. So it has something you can only buy once in a while, but maybe the tiniest little reward, something like Ashes of Alar, or even some of the rarest mounts of the game, if you put all that work in and just happen to hit the jackpot. The luckiest roll you could possibly get, and bang, there's this amazing reward that, really, why not? The game's getting older. Some of this stuff is getting rare enough, or people that have put the work in. Like I myself just got my Ashes of Alar, putting in months and months of work of soloing Tempest Keep to get it. People who put the work in, why not give them a slight outside chance of something amazing as the game gets old? Something they can feel like, wow, this is my crowning achievement in World of Warcraft. Because I got to be honest, getting my Ashes of Alar does feel like almost a crowning type of achievement. Kind of sad but true that shows why I'm a casual and to call myself teasingly myself as a bad player, because that's something that's that special to me, that is more special than any of the end game raid bosses I've killed and that sort of thing. But a slight chance something really amazing would be really cool, and it could all be related to one faction where you get to Exalted and then you can get these rewards, and like I said, one reward could be a random chance of an item or something amazing, but you could do it only once in a while, once a week, once a month, once a day, whatever. You buy the item, you roll, you take your shot at rolling, and if something amazing pops out of it, you're happy, and if not, no worse than people who sign up for a tank or a healer during the times when there isn't many of them to get the little satchel there. You don't often get much, but sometimes you do, and that's worthwhile, for players to just even take the chance once in a while when they're bored. So I could see that being really valuable. And now, in addition to the faction, and because also the problem is gear, obviously the gear is still going to drop. You're going to get some items of gear that you can maybe use for transmog or whatever, but a lot of the gear just really isn't worth keeping or using, or it's just boring middle tier kind of gear. So maybe they could also find a way to make some collectible items drop. Like kind of like the items that you collect in the Dominance Offensive for the Horde, where every time you kill bad guys or alliances or whatever, or some of the different mobs, it drops these items and you keep collecting and pooling them up. I guess kind of like the timeless coins too, now that we're having in the new patch, or coming up here, the final patch of the expansion. And you just collect them and collect them and collect them, and maybe when you get a ton of them, you go and you buy something. Like once again, the idea of the bones on the Isle of Giants, really cool idea. So maybe as you go through them, then because you're in the legacy content, running it in the scaled form, all of a sudden extra things drop that you collect. And then you can see you build them up, and maybe some other rewards you can buy that way. Once again, nothing that is end-game content, nothing that feels mandatory, only fun stuff, and just things that are purely for the enjoyment of having them, with the exception of maybe a slight outside chance of some good gear, like saying with the lottery ticket idea, when you get to the exalted stage or whatever with the factions. You can't make running old content mandatory for endgame players who don't want to do it. It must be fun, free, enjoyable for us that want to do it, and maybe something outside chance of being worthwhile to people who may not otherwise run it. But it can, for people who would be a grinder, for example. But it can't be something that a normal in-game or hardcore progression player should feel that they have anything to gain from, because if you're in a full raid schedule, maybe you just don't have time for it. And if you do, it should be something you do when you're bored on an afternoon, not something that you would have any just kind of pressure to do it. So that's what I'd like to see happening with the idea of old content. A faction. Simple as that. A nice faction, whether it's to do with, defending the time. You collect these items at the end of every dungeon, and that helps protect the timeline somehow from some invader that's trying to destroy the past of Azeroth, or you make it, historical in value, like Lorewalker chose Secret Society or something where you're educating him and helping him understand the past of Azeroth, so you can all kind of get an understanding. I mean, actually, just to throw in one little thing about that, he could also introduce each one with what he knows about it, or maybe some way to bring back the reason why we did these dungeons, what was important, why the dungeon was actually there, to help create that feeling of storyline. Or maybe when it's done, and actually you go back and you get the reward, maybe he can tell you, oh, I understand now, we did this because of this and this, and oh, it makes so much sense. And then we learn the history and the lore of WoW if we want. Maybe you could choose not to hear it if you're just not a lore person. But the person who wants to hear it, like myself, can go back and see the relevance for every single dungeon and raid. Oh, and one final little idea too is the idea of maybe weekly or monthly or periodic quests where you're supposed to run the specific one. Maybe it can be a raid. That's so they can incorporate the raids better. This month you're supposed to run this raid, and if you do that, we'll give you this reward or something. And so, that month you might get together with some group of guys and say, okay, this is the day we're going to run this old content in scaled form, or this week or whatever, because it may not take a day. I mean, even old raids, in scaled form might take people a week to progress on to, or two if they're, not regular raiders. But somehow weekly or monthly or periodic quests to do specific types of that scaled content, so it actually has a little more relevance and a little bit of direction, rather than I'm just going to randomly queue up for random something from the past, whether it's a raid or a dungeon or whatever. Because that's fun too, but also having a bit of direction and a quest to feel like, wow, I accomplished a quest and I got a little reward is also a cool aspect about that. So that's all the ideas I could really see Blizzard implementing to make the scaling of old content real and relevant and fun, yet at the same time not mandatory and critical for endgame progression. Just something for us casuals who reminisce for the past once in a while to go back and do it and have something to gain. People who are reputation hounds or grinders, people who have to have everything in the game, can go and do it again and again and just reap the ambiance and the experience and the rewards and approximate what the game was like back then. And the people who just really don't have that interest in the game can say, yeah, there's nothing I need from that, so I can just move on and do what I want. Like, really, how many? I'm sure there was enough people that didn't even bother doing the operation. How was it? Operation the final quest, the quest chain in patch 5.3. I don't know. The name. I apologize. The name is escaping me. But where you collect all the resources every week and you solve the quest, and then you go and you go up and you climb the mountain with the last emperor of Pandaria and that kind of thing, and in the end you get that achievement. Not everybody even cared about that, and people who didn't need the gear and didn't really have any enjoyment, that didn't have to. And that's the way I think they have to implement the scaling of old content. So it's just fun and enjoyment, and nothing that the player who wants to skip it can't or should feel that there's any reason not to skip it. So yeah, that's my thoughts on it. Sorry to go on about for 20 minutes, but I think it's a topic that is very important, I think, to the legacy of WoW. And I know Blizzard's asking for ideas and thoughts to help implement these ideas so that we can get it sooner. And I want to help too. And I think that's, I don't know, I can't think of a better way to implement something like that than what some of the ideas I suggested. So I hope that Blizzard it will get a chance to take catch wind of this and take it to heart and see if that's really the direction they want to go. Because I think that would be a great way to bring back scale legacy content for those who want to do it. And just like I said, as WoW gets old and starts to die, all the content in the game can always stay relevant, stay there and real, and give people a chance to either run it solo if you prefer that, or to run it in a scaled group where they can experience an approximation, a gross approximation of what it was like running it, back in the time when it was real. Once again, I would always use that because of the fact that it'll never be as hard as it was back then, because of the fact that abilities get better, the game evolves, and we get better and better abilities, and that there's no way to go back and really, really feel the toughness of what a dungeon at level 60 or 65 would have been, or 70 at level 90 and above. It's just not possible the way the game has changed. All we can do is approximate it and just get a feel for what the game might have been like back then. And that's all it has to be, because it's all in fun. It's not mandatory, it's not critical, it's just another fun way to play WoW for us that really want to see that way to play WoW in the game. And like I said, that's something I've wanted for a long time, and I hope there's enough of you out there that really want that, because I don't think we're ever going to see legacy or legacy actual servers of old versions of World of Warcraft. The best we're going to get is to just go back and approximate it with the game we have today, in my opinion. So, but anyway, that's my thoughts. I'm going to wrap it up with that. Once again, I am Daniel Gagne, Bad Player 03, Rialtus Killdog. You can follow me on Twitter at BadPlayer03. Under Daniel Gagne. I love my Twitter. You can always get a hold of me there. One of my favorite means of communication. You can also email me at badplayer03@gmail.com. Love feedback. Welcome it. Leave comments on my YouTube channel under BadPlayer03 Daniel Gagne. Because I welcome your feedback and thoughts. And hey, I mean, if I didn't think there's anyone out there who would ever watch what I do, I mean, really, why would I do it? So I always welcome what you guys think and that sort of thing. Ways I can improve, suggestions, that sort of thing. And any other means of communicating? Sorry, I haven't done this for so well. I'm a little rusty in terms of what options I have. Oh, and of course, I hope you'll subscribe to my channel, because I mean, haven't put out as much stuff lately, but I'm not going away. I mean, I still love this media of expression. I still have lots to say, and when I have something to say, I come out and I do it like this. So, yeah, please, if you want to keep up to date on any of my content, please subscribe. Subscribing is the best way to encourage somebody and tell them that you like what they're saying, you like what they're presenting to you, and you want more. So, please, always keep that in mind. Like and subscribe to the channel. That's as important as anything you're going to do on YouTube. So anyways, I'm going to wrap it up. You guys have a great day, and I look forward to your feedback on the matter. And, of course, to Blizzard, I hope that someone from Blizzard has a chance to watch this and take in my ideas. And I look forward to patch 5.4 and going on to the next expansion, which secretly, I still, for the record, believe is the Dark Below. As much as I see Blizzard or secretly trying to cover up that fact, I truly believe that was trademarked to be the new expansion. And I don't know what that's going to be like. That's a whole nother video in itself, but I really do believe that's going to be the next expansion. So anyways, you guys have a good night. You take care, and we'll talk to you next time. Bye now.